Hey girl, hey, and welcome to the Self-Love Fix podcast where we get relatable, we share tea, and we support each other on this journey of self-love, self-worth, personal development, self-esteem, and self-care. Because why wait until it's too late to start becoming the best version of ourselves? Let's start today. And I'm your host, Beatrice. So let's get into it. Hey girl, hey! Welcome back to the Self-Love Fix. So originally I was going to head in a different direction this week with the topic, but there was a listener who asked if I could talk about abandonment issues, specifically like daddy issues and what all that entails and, just kind of the coping that goes along with it and what to do about it. Yeah. So I thought, oh, if she's asking this question, like it must be other people that are dealing with this too. Maybe not everybody has daddy issues. You could have mommy issues. You could have just abandonment in other ways, really, from other family members. And so I thought, oh, this would be a good topic. I myself haven't gone through abandonment like with my own father. That's not something I've experienced, but I've experienced abandonment of sorts. So I can definitely relate. And hopefully what I have to say can help some of you out who have gone through or are going through abandonment issues. So first of all, when it comes to abandonment issues, sometimes people think it only happens to people who are physically left by someone. That's usually the most common, like as in maybe your dad left when you were younger or your mom left when you were younger or at any point in your life. A lot of the times that's what we think of when we think of abandonment issues, but it could also be that maybe your parents worked really, really long hours because they had to do what they had to do to provide for you. So maybe they were gone for, 10, 12 plus hours a day, and little you couldn't really understand why they had to do it. Like couldn't understand that they were just trying to provide for you. Like instead, when you were young, you probably perceived it as I'm alone, they've abandoned me, and you probably didn't even realize it until you got older. That kind of happened to me. My parents, when I was younger, they just had to do what they had to do. They had to work and go to school for really long hours. So when I was younger, it didn't really faze me. I spent a lot of my time with music and books and TV. Like I would consume my life with those things. A lot of you may find that if you have abandonment issues that you spend a lot of time consuming media, consuming TV, or you spent a lot of the time doing that and you probably just thought, oh, you were just a normal little kid. And it's not that it's not normal. It's just more that when you do have a parent who's not present for you in the way that you might need them to, you tend to go look for another outlet. And what happens is, again, whether your parent was actually left the building, like actually left your home or just worked really long hours, what you may find is that almost escape mechanism, for lack of better words, of listening to music and watching lots of TV and being on, I don't know, I think when I was younger, I did like Neopets and like a lot of YouTube and a lot of whatever was trending back then, like forums. I think it was like online forums. I did a lot of that just constantly on the computer all the time. You might find that when you get older, it transitions from consuming into more innocent like things like that to maybe drinking a lot, or maybe drugs. So you look to that, or it could look like you have trouble not staying out of relationships. Like you always need to have somebody, like you have trouble being single. Literally, this is what abandonment issues can do for you is you find throughout your life experience, you trade one, I don't want to say addiction. I don't think when you're little and you're, consuming a lot of TV and going online a lot that you have an addiction, but it's more just like an escape mechanism. So you go from one escape mechanism to another as you get older and you find more and more outlets, right? So I always say this in every episode because I feel like it needs to be known. This isn't to shame anybody. Don't feel shame if like you find that maybe you drink a little bit more than, you should on the weekends. It's a catch-22 because it's like you're trying to alleviate that feeling of abandonment by reaching to these escape mechanisms like drinking, like trying to always be in a relationship, like, maybe even overeating, like emotional eating. I shouldn't say overeating. I don't like that word. I'd rather say emotional eating. It's like, it's a catch-22 because it's like you're reaching towards all these things to try and fill that hole of abandonment that you have, but it doesn't fill you up. And so it's just like you're like a hamster on what do they go on? A hamster wheel? I'm sorry, this is not funny, but I couldn't think of the word. That's why I laughed. But it's like you're a hamster on a hamster wheel. You're just trying to chase something, but you're ending up nowhere. It's really quite unfortunate, but that's one of the things abandonment issues really do to you. So another thing is what really can be unfortunate is if you don't know you have abandonment issues and you just find yourself reaching to these coping mechanisms or escape mechanisms, like I said, drugs, alcohol, sex, those kind of things. You might not even know that you have abandonment issues. So if you even know that you have them, that's half the work. Most people don't. They just know that they have issues with doing too much of something in terms of coping mechanisms or escape mechanisms. And then it's just really unfortunate. So you might be asking yourself, okay, outside of having coping mechanisms or escape mechanisms, what else does having abandonment issues look like? So I just want to disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist. Everything I say in these podcasts is really just my own experiences, like me relaying my own experiences and my thoughts surrounding how to heal from them. So I'm not a psychologist or a therapist or a licensed one for that matter. But I will say that from my experience, what abandonment looks like is having trouble letting go of toxic people, as in there could be somebody who's just not treating you right and they threaten to leave you. And you're just like, please, 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 please don't leave. Please don't leave. Please don't leave. Even though you know in your mind, they're not that good for you. It's that they can't survive without one of their coping mechanisms. As in, and there's nothing wrong with smoking weed. I personally don't smoke it myself, but I'm just saying, if you get to a point where you need weed to get through the day, that doesn't mean you have abandonment issues, but that may be related to it, because what happens with abandonment issues is that you need something to kind of soothe you, something on the outside to soothe you, because you're going through some kind of pain on the inside. So if you find that you're dependent on whether it's alcohol or some other sort of drug, in conjunction with a fear of loneliness, extreme fear of loneliness or extreme fear of just being by yourself for extended periods of time. So let me just say the two together, like having that dependence on alcohol or drugs and having an extreme fear of loneliness, whether it's being physically alone or not being in a partnership or a relationship, that usually signals some sort of abandonment. Because again, it's that need that something on the outside needs to make me feel better, because there's something on the inside I don't know how to control. I don't know how to soothe. I don't know how to fix. So I need everything on the outside to help me fix what's going on in the inside. That's really what abandonment is. So those are the things I would say are going to be your top indicators of having some sort of abandonment issue. So if your parent, whether it was your dad or your mother, left you at a very young age, whether you were able to understand that they left you if you were at that age, or whether you didn't understand, but you eventually found out later, what happens is that as a child, as you witness that as a child, you end up telling yourself a story. Well, first of all, let me just preface this by saying, when you're a child, you associate your emotions with yourself. You think that your emotions are you as a child. You don't have the ability to understand things that you would as an adult as a child. So as in, children take things very, very personally because their ego is not developed the way that an adult's ego is developed, or should be developed, is what I should say. So what that means is children perceive that everything that happens to them is personal. Everything that happens to them is their fault. So when you're a child and your parent leaves, your dad leaves, or your mom leaves, what you tell yourself as a child, and this is completely subconscious or unconscious, you're not aware that you're telling yourself this, but it's just something that happens way deep in your mind as a child. you tell yourself, they left me because, something negative about yourself. Like they left me because I wasn't a good kid, or they left me because I wasn't enough, or they left me because I wasn't worthy. Or again, in the same breath, like I was saying earlier, if you just had a parent who was working constantly and didn't have enough time for you as a child, the story you tell yourself is they're always gone because I'm not worthy of their time. Do you see what I'm saying? Like as an adult, you'd be able to know, oh, they work a lot because they have to put a roof over my head. And that's just the way it is. That's how they have to be able to help us survive. But as a child, you can't understand all these other factors. As a child, all you understand is that your parent is not there with you when you need them. So the conclusion you draw is it's because of me. So what happens is if you carry that belief from your childhood all the way up until your adulthood, if that story doesn't get changed, if that story doesn't get removed, what happens is it gets buried so deep that you don't even know that you have that story. Again, like I said, most people who have abandonment issues don't even know it until something triggers that awareness. So now what happens is as a fully grown adult, that story you told yourself as a child that had to do with that one particular scenario with just you and your parent, like, oh, they are not here because I'm not good enough for them, or because they don't love me enough, or because I'm not lovable enough. Again, it's all as children, the narrative surrounds around you. So what happens is you carry that story and you take it to every interaction and every facet of your life. The story is no longer, they don't stay or they don't hang around me because I'm not lovable enough for them. The story is now, nobody stays around me because I'm not lovable, period. Do you see what I mean? So now what happens is you feel awful about yourself. You start drinking, you start dating people who are just no good for you because you form this narrative about yourself that you're just not worthy enough or you're just not good enough. It all stems from that feeling of abandonment. And it's terrible and it sucks and it's awful. And I hate that. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but so many of us go through it. So understand that if you are reaching to drinking or emotional eating or having, maybe more riskier sex with people you don't necessarily want to sleep with, but you just feel like it's something you need to do, or if you just can't stay single, understand that it's your coping mechanism. It's your way of trying to fill that hole that you feel from the abandonment. So number one, if you're going through these abandonment issues, like the number one thing to start doing, I know it sounds tough, but to pull yourself away from the coping mechanisms. Once you stop having those coping mechanisms around, it's going to be hard. I don't care what your coping mechanism is. I don't care if it's not even drugs or alcohol. Like even if it's just, I don't know, like you watch a lot of TV, that's another one, like a super passive one. Like you might just be somebody who sits and watches TV all day and it's your comfort. Removing that or removing drugs or removing alcohol or whatever, it's going to feel like hell. It's going to feel awful because this is what you've grown accustomed to. This is how you get your comfort. But removing it is a way that you can start healing because it forces you to come face to face with what you're feeling deep inside. And so another thing I recommend is to definitely think about getting a therapist. I think traditional talk therapy helps get out whatever's underneath, sitting down deep underneath out so that you know exactly where your abandonment issues are stemming from. But if you already know where your abandonment issues are stemming from, definitely start journaling, definitely start facing the feelings. Start journaling how that abandonment event made you feel. A lot of times we just know what happened to us, but we don't talk about how we feel about what happened to us. That's where the real healing begins, is talking about how to heal from it. I mean, talking about what you felt about the abandonment event. And then after you remove your coping/escape mechanisms, and then you talk to either a therapist or even a coach, a life coach, therapist, what have you, really just someone to talk to that's not like your friend or your family member, somebody that can help guide you through the conversation is what I meant. Like I said, either a therapist or like a life coach or something like that. And after you journal how the abandonment event or events made you feel, then you want to start working towards creating a new story for yourself or creating a new narrative for yourself. Those are the things I would advise, because A lot of people don't realize this, but when it comes to abandonment issues, a lot of times they are the source of our low self-esteem or our inability to love ourselves. Abandonment issues have a huge, or they play a huge role because when you think about it, again, you're forming the story or you formed the story when you were younger about yourself that you just were not worthy of someone's time, worthy of someone's presence, or worthy of someone's affection. And so, of course, that damages your self esteem and damages your ability to love yourself over time. So, hopefully, that all made sense. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode, learning a little bit about abandonment with me. I know it's not a fun topic, it's a very painful topic for most of us, but it's one that needed to be talked about because, again, it affects the way we love ourselves and it affects how we feel about ourselves. So, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you next week.